Hello, Ed. I see you're driving. Where are you
Yeah,
going?
Andy, driving to the race.
Which race is that?
The first one is the Born to Run, and that's in Los Olivos, which is, I guess, it's east of Santa Barbara. But I think it's north and east of Santa Barbara, out on a big cattle ranch. So that's the first one, and then I have two more after that.
So you'll be starting when for the Born to Run?
That race will start at noon, which means less than 3 hours from now.
Okay. And you're going to do 100 miles there and then get done. And so kind of just walk people through what's your plan for this upcoming 3 or 4 days.
Sure. So I'm actually signed up for the 4-day race, which starts at noon on Wednesday. Their standard 100-mile race will start Friday night at 6. So when I get there, I'll just have them switch me over, if the race director is okay with it, which I'm pretty sure he will be. But switch me into the 100 and just let me do an early start, which shouldn't be a problem. The problem with an early start is it can mess up the results. And also competition-wise, if I was competitive in the race, if I've already ran it and the benefit to other runners would be, okay, they would know my finish time. But if they weren't aware of that, I'm not there to compete, and that would change the makeup of the race, the dynamics of it. But I'm not going to be competitive in the 100. I'll be, I don't know how many are going to be in it, but I'll be good probably to get in the top 20. So I don't think he's going to have a problem with that. It did backfire me at a race once where I actually lost my first place position and actually am now an asterisk in a race that I should have won, because I thought I'd worked out those details with the race director, and we had a miscommunication, and it didn't quite go the way I thought it would on the results. But nonetheless, so that's my goal: get there, get myself switched into the 100-mile category. I'm hoping to do that in about 25, 26 hours maybe. So that means I'll finish up tomorrow at maybe 2 o'clock. I'll take a nap there at the venue in my car, get a couple hours sleep, and then head from Los Olivos to Bakersfield, which, correct me if I'm wrong, Andy, is that like about a 2.5, 3 hour drive?
I think at least 3 hours probably.
Yeah, and then I'll maybe be dealing with after rush hour traffic. So then I'm heading to Andy's place, and then we're going to take off Friday morning at maybe 3 a.m.-ish, I guess. So head out at what my friend says is the butt crack of dawn. I've heard the crack of dawn, but she said in where she's from, they call it the butt crack of dawn. So all right, so we'll be heading out at the butt crack of dawn, and then heading to Las Vegas for 200s. The first one will be the USATF 100-mile, which has some really, really super world record holders like Zach Bitter will be there, and so I'll be there to play in his dust. But so I'll do that on Friday, the USATF course, which is a 1-mile loop that's only for those in that race. And then hopefully finish that one in sub 24, get a little bit of rest, and then do the Citizens 100-mile race, which starts on Saturday on the same venue but on a 2-mile loop. So there you go. That's the goal for the next couple of days to get 300s in.
I think it's even like a 2.5-mile loop, isn't it?
Oh, is it? Maybe it is.
Yeah. I think it is. Yeah, no, it's kind of interesting. Like I said, so you're going to be at Born to Run. That's on a 10-mile sort of loop, traily. I guess has one really good downhill, and then you're going to. I thought you're going to kind of do the race and rest up there at the venue, or what are you planning on doing exactly?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Where you're going to finish the race at Born to Run and leave there right after the race, or are you going to stay there and then get up and come over here?
I'm going to try and go straight through on that race without any sleep. So the first thing I'm going to do is as soon as I finish the race, get some sleep there
Yeah.
at the venue, and you know, who knows, maybe a couple hours, and then from there I'll head towards Bakersfield.
Okay. I'll just I wasn't sure on what your logistics were. And yeah, so that race, and yeah, the US track and field, I did a little preview of it, and you got Zach Bitter and Jake Jackson, who is on our USA 24-hour team. And there's a couple other guys that are definitely going to be going fast. Big prize money. They got like $10,000 on the line that if you win the race, you get 2,500, I think. And then if you break some records, so you could actually make almost $4,000 at this race. And of course, they'll be done in about 12 hours, I'd imagine, 12 or 13 hours, which is funny because I tell people back in 2019, one of the last races I did run for the kids. And you, of course, were there, but you were in the 24 or 25-hour race. But Zach showed up that morning to do the 12-hour with me, which I was shocked he was there. And he was going for a really fast race. You know, it's on that half-mile loop. And Zach's flying around, lapping me every lap, doing 7-minute miles. I'm doing 16s. And then we had like the 5K at like 9 or 10 in the morning with hundreds of kids. And Zach's having to run around all the kids. And he ended up getting 95.5 miles. And I always tell people, yeah, I got third overall in the race, second male. And Zach did 95.5 and I did 42.5 or something. He beat me by 52 miles. Yeah, I did 43.5.
But you still see what you need to do is you just need to reframe the way you have that conversation. Yeah, I was in a race with Zach. I took second place. I let Zach win this one. I didn't want to make him feel bad. No one needs to know that he beat you by 52 miles.
Of course, the thing is he's going to probably you're going to double his time probably too. So he doubled he more than doubled my mileage, but he'll definitely double, he'll probably do it in 12 hours, I bet, which is just phenomenal how fast those guys are really running. Cause I plan on I'm going up there with Ed, and we'll get there, and I'm planning on covering the 100 USTF, and I'm planning on like walking the race, like every hour, walking the lap in reverse and just kind of videotaping everybody. And then I realized like me walking the lap will take me about 20 minutes. I might see Zach 3 times.
Yeah, that's true.
which is, when you think about it, like I'll see him 2-3 times per lap. That's just what's crazy. I mean, we were there, of course, in the Dome 2014 when he set the record and when he did the 100-mile record that time. That was pretty amazing. And he was just whizzing past all of us, and remember him high-fiving the kids.
Yeah,
remember that? That was such a crazy thing where we thought we had the Dome all to ourselves. We were kind of told this, and then so Saturday, Sunday it was kind of quiet, but then first thing Monday morning there was like a fitness class and some of the people out walking, and then during the day, Monday through Friday, there was a daycare there, basically, where kids from the age of 5 to 10 were in there yelling and screaming and having a great old time. And so it
was something different. It was different is good, like Groundhog Day, with Phil Connors. Different is good. But what I remember, one of the things I remember about the 6 days in the Dome when Zach was there is he had a bad day. For him, it was a bad day. He was having to hit the John quite a few times. He still sets an American record, even with a bad day. He would have probably broke the world record, except that, he had issues going on.
Yeah, and the thing with that race, I'm pretty sure we didn't have you actually had to like run into the main bathroom, which was just off the course, but still was an extra 15, 20 feet that you definitely had to, do maneuver, which is never a great thing to have to leave the course and get back on the course and all that kind of stuff. In fact, I was scrolling through here to see what Zach's, he did. It's so weird on Ultra Sign Up. They just put like his 6 days in the Dome, and they just put his 100 miles 5th overall because, he stopped at 100 miles, but he's in a 24-hour race. They don't actually put his they don't, like Desert Solstice, they put both. They put his 100-mile split. Like in 2015, he went 11:40 for 100 miles, and then he did 100.
That's the great thing is I actually can claim with an asterisk, oh yeah, I've been in a race with Zach. I beat him. Well, it's because they didn't have a 12-hour race. They only had a 24. So he goes out there and knocks out 112 hours or less than 12 hours, and then he's done. I'm doing the 24, so his results show up in the 24. So if I do 101 miles, I'm going to show a better result in the end than he has. So interesting how that works out.
Yeah, it says here, I was Googling him. So it's like he has a world record for the 100-mile and the 12-hour track. Bitter claimed both records during his performance 6 days of the Dome in Milwaukee, which I was also at, where he did 111 hours, 19 minutes, 13 seconds, beating the old world record by almost 11 minutes and was 20 minutes faster than his own American mark. After claiming that he continued on for another 40 minutes and upped his 12-hour distance to a world record, 104.8 miles in 12 hours. So, yeah, he went to University of Wisconsin. And so, yeah, he's going to be there, and Jake Jackson is going to be there. And, of course, Jake was on our American team, the 24-hour team that won, and he did like some pretty phenomenal amount of distance on his race. So it's pretty cool to see those guys.
And Patrick Regan, I think he's won Javelina 3 times, I think.
Yes.
He'll be there. And then there's Micah, a woman who was did really well in the international 24-hour. And
yes.
Yeah, so there's some big names.
Yeah, Micah was on the women's team in that same time, and she did 148 miles at that world championship, and helped our Americans win. And she did 148. And then, of course, I can click on here. It's Jake. Where is he? It's funny, they're kind of down on the list because they actually run a lot of races. You know, of course, Patrick Regan, I didn't realize in 2019 he came in 8th at Western States.
Wow.
And so he's in Western States this year because of course it got.
It's interesting what we were talking about earlier. The way that they list things, you know, like again with Zach being in a 24-hour race and showing up way down on the list. Well, you look at ultra signups, Zach is like.
You broke up.
I don't know, 90 or 90 record holder. Well, again, because the races he's in, he gets a lower percentage ranking because if it's a 24-hour race, he stops when he's set a world record, but yet others are still going on for the 24-hour, and so they'll get a higher ranking on ultra signups than he does.
So, yeah, you broke up a little bit, but we got most of it. But, yeah, Jake did 164 miles and was 8th overall at the World Championships, and they helped Americans do well, win that race. And so, like you look at the entrant list for the U.S. track and field, and Patrick is definitely at 98.6, but he also only runs races. He's done 124. I was at the Desert Solstice when he ran. He ran an okay 100-mile time, and then he ended up stopping because he just had never done the 24. Same thing kind of with Zach. Zach this year went to the Desert Solstice with in mind to do a whole 24, and he really suffered. I don't know if you saw him out there, but he was doing some 25 minute laps, but he wanted to be out there because he's never been out there the entire 24 hours. And so he definitely was in the hurt crew. But yeah, like in 2018, Patrick did the Desert Solstice and 14:04 for the 100, which he was 3rd overall. But then he kept going. He went to 130 miles and then stopped eventually. And but yeah, so he got an 82% ranking. And yeah, that's the thing is like my ranking isn't good to begin with, but then when I'm in a race with, Zach and he beats me by 52 miles, well, they just take they just divide it. So my percentage just comes out terrible.
Well, I was my best race as far as 24-hour 100-mile was at the same race, and it was Desert Solstice, and it was 2013. And so my best time ever, I had a 14:50 which, that's a pretty decent 100. Normally that would be, a win or it would be a high score on their percentage. And because Zach did the 100, because they give the results for both the 100-mile split and the overall 24. So of course
Yeah.
Zach got the 100% with the 100-mile, and my 1450 100, which is the best I've ever done by far, not only was it 79%, so I didn't even hit 80%,
Yeah.
but I was fourth, and on top of that, I got chicked. Of course, Pam Smith set an American record there at that race. Yeah, so I didn't even make the well, I made the male podium, but I didn't make the overall podium.
Yeah.
Got it, all those things. But in the 24, I ended up getting second place next to Olivier. He took first, and I got second with 144. So, yeah, it was
Yeah.
okay. LeBlanc,
Yeah.
Olivier LeBlanc, yeah.
But yeah, but it's just funny because the ultra sign up, they just take, the winning distance and divide yours by the winning distance or the time. They just do simple math, and it's fine and everything. But it's funny because, like I said, at this 12-hour race, Zach did 95.5 miles. I did 43.5. So I got a 55% on that.
But yeah, you still took second male and third overall. So
yeah. But then again, like I've been at, my first, my 6th day, I do 322, get 9th overall. But Joe Fegis was there with 555, so my score again is like a D. So yeah, I get kind of killed on the old the rankings, because, well, what you do is you don't do races where there's fast guys,
right?
Because
and that's the way you can cherry pick and figure out which races you want to do. So my goal when I get to Vegas for those 2 races is I'd like to get podium for age, because they also, because it's USATF, they do the age ranking. So I'm 50 to 59. Of course, Jean Pommier, he'll blow that age group out of the water, but there's not that many that are in the 50 to 59, and I should still maybe get second or third in that, so that would be good. But then in the Citizens 100-miler on Saturday, there's so few people, and all the fast ones are doing the race the day before, that on paper I should be able to do well. Of course, that'll be my third 100-mile race within a 5-day span of time, or 4-day span of time. So we'll see. If I could do anything more than crawl.
Yeah, I went to the track and field one there at Jackpot 2 years ago, I guess, 2019, with kind of the idea of like, I like the 1 mile loop, because the 1 mile loop is just like a big NASCAR loop. It's a big oval. It's kind of like the loop that people that live there actually do, where the 2 mile loop is this crazy horseshoe C-shaped thing, all kinds of different terrain, grass, dirt, all kinds of stuff. So I was on the loop, but the problem was that year they only gave us a 30-hour cutoff. And I've told this story before, but me and Fast Eddie, who's going to be there, he's now 81. Last year he did a little over 30 hours. We were both there, and we were kind of going back and forth throughout the race. But I got to like 65 miles, and I did the math, and I was like, we're not going to make 80 miles in 24 hours, or it's going to be really close. And then the problem is, then we got to maintain that same pace for another 6 hours by ourselves, because no one's on our loop. So it's just going to be me and Eddie out there for the last, 20 miles. And so I just said, I'm going home. So I got home. As I was driving home, it got super cold. It actually, Vegas got snowed in that year, and it was just this crazy weather. And then unfortunately, by the time I got home around the 24-hour mark, and poor Eddie missed the cutoff. So he came back in 2020 last year, which I signed up for, and I should have went and done, but they bumped the cutoff to like 32 hours, or now it's 34.
This year, I think Ken said this year's 38. I think he said.
The U.S. track and field, they listed as 34 on the website. Okay. So,
I
almost kind of wanted to do it, but I'm just not really ready to do anything really long. So that was but Eddie's back out there, 81, and it should be fun to watch him. And then, the civilian race is kind of all wide. We call it the civilian just because I don't know what else to call it. And it's all wide open.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we also get to see Yolanda's going to be in the U.S. track and field one. She kind of last minute decided to go do that. So it'll be fun to see her walking around and doing that one. And so that sounds like pretty much that's what's going on. And then, of course, we were on Clubhouse earlier today. We're still trying to figure out Clubhouse, what to do with it. And we were talking about, your plans. Obviously, you're going to get number 200 this weekend, which we kind of got buried the lead.
That's the plan. That would be my the final race I do, the Saturday race. I was thinking, so the vast majority of people that are doing the USATF, out of the 40 or 50 people that are entered, I would think all but a handful will be finished in 24 hours. I'll have a unique perspective in that if it goes according to plan, I'll have done both the 1 mile short USATF loop and the 2.5 mile, what do you call it? The citizens loop? Or no, what did you call it?
Civilian race. Yeah. I don't know.
Civilian race. So I'll have the perspective of having done both. And I'm thinking what might be kind of, because it feels kind of like, oh, we're just the bastard stepchild, just that we don't get to get the good, quote, fast course. So I'm thinking maybe after doing those, I might suggest to Ken, why don't you do it the way you have it, the USATF on Friday and the civilian one Saturday, but put them on that same course, because at that point there'll only be a handful of people, and then have all those doing the fixed time events on the bigger 2.5 mile loop. I don't know. I wonder if you would be willing to entertain that idea, because for the last or for the second 24 hours, whoever's still in that USATF course, they're going to be pretty slim on. There's not going to be that many, just a handful still out there, and I would think they would like to have some companionship.
You do have company in that the courses intersect each other, so that's not too. Because there's 46 in the U.S. track and field one, and there's actually only 24 or something, 24 in the regular 100. But the thing is, he really loves that 2.5 mile loop. So I don't like it at all because I don't like all the turning and the variety. You got to run around that grass field, which just takes a lot out of you. You got to run on that trail by the lake, which is rocky and just technical. And like I said, I like NASCAR when it comes to doing my longer events. I like to just be able to go out there and do laps and not have to worry about footing and all those kind of things. But some people, I guess, like the variety, but then I'm like, well, that's why there's trail racing. But sure. but that's just that's I really like the US track and field loop. Sure, it's just like I said, it's just a big oval. It does have a little bit of hills in it, obviously. It's not completely flat there. The other thing that's big issue at the Jackpot is there's no tree covers, so you're out there in the daylight the entire time, and I think a lot of people don't realize that.
We got an update just yesterday. Ken had sent an update saying that good news is the weather is trending a little bit lower. It was supposed to be mid 90s. Now it looks like it's going to be mid to high 80s. But he said, unfortunately, the bad news, there's projected winds, and I saw it 24-mile-an-hour winds. He said, that's, as race directors, he said, we hate the wind as much as you do, because now we've got to rent water barrels to tie everything down so it doesn't blow away. So so we're trading some cooler temps for some wind, but that's the way it is with races. You take what comes and make the best of it.
Yeah, the thing is, at least it's in a valley, the race, so you may not get as much of the brunt of the wind, and it's kind of nice. It's like all kinds of people out there, and it's amazing how much it's built up around there. Now there's houses around it, just like Vegas does. It keeps growing and growing, and the thing is, you've got Patrick Regan. He's from Savannah, Georgia, so he's used to humidity and heat. And then, of course, Zach lives in Phoenix, and Jake lives down where you live. So they're all kind of used to the warm weather. So that should be interesting. But hopefully the winds stay down a little bit, because that is a pain in the rear when the wind's blowing hard and all that kind of thing. So that should be fun. What's the weather looking like for the Born to Run? Have you been out there
Yeah, I,
before? Is it usually pretty nice?
I didn't even check. I have no clue. I do know that we've got cloud cover, pretty good cloud cover. In fact, I probably don't hardly need my shades, but so I don't know. For all I know, it might even rain out there. I'm hoping not, because I was out there one year. I've done the Born to Run probably 5 or 6 years, but a couple of years I did only the 100, and then I think this will be not actually doing the 4 day, but I've done the 4 day twice. I've done the full 4 day just for the benefit of the 4 day, and that I got 270 both times, which is the course record. But then one year I wanted to get 200s out of it, so I signed up for the 4 day and the 100.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm trying to remember. It may have been that year I did that. That it rained, and not only did I not have any hiking poles, which are really nice on a muddy course when it rains, but as I'm wont to do, I had shoes that were completely worn out, and there was like zero tread. They were slick. They were a street shoe to begin with, the Ultra Paradigm. There's not much tread on those. It's not an aggressive trail tread to begin with. And then I'd worn it down after whatever 2,000 miles, and so I'm out on that course on the single track portion, especially they have this one really steep part. I'm slipping, I'm falling constantly. I was just a muddy mess, and so I'm hoping it doesn't rain. Now, I actually have a brand new pair of Ultra Olympus 4 or 4.5 or 5. I don't know. Anyway, it's one of the newer. I think it's the newest model of the Olympus, and I have hiking poles. So if we do get rain, then I'm prepared. So I don't know where Andy went. He may have taken a potty break. So I'll keep talking so we don't have any dead air. Oh, there you are. All right. So all right. So anyway, I was just saying that if it does rain, I'm prepared compared to last time it rained there, and
Yeah.
I slipping and falling all over the place.
Well, I just looked up the weather for you, and it's just sorry, I had to go off camera for a minute. Got this stupid medication behind, and it's going to be cloudy. It's going to be chilly there. Well, I mean, chilly relative. It's going to be like Wednesday, the weather's 64 to 44. Thursday, 67 to 42. So a little cool at night. Yeah, that's what it said. Yeah.
Well,
so you'll have great.
Yeah, that's really going to be good. That's perfect weather, actually. Yeah. And no forecast of rain?
Yeah, the precipitation's just like, 2%, 1%, today, 2%, 1% next day. So that's pretty much means perfect. No.
Well, that should be good.
Yeah, today actually looks like on Friday, the wind's going to pick up some. And actually Saturday and Sunday it might rain there. 7-10%.
Yeah, and see that is the issue. Like I'm doing an early start 100. Again, if the race director allows, he might say, "No, Ed, you're signed up for the 4 day. You gotta just take your 100 miles in the 4 day and be happy with that." Which I'm okay with it, except for just like we were talking about before, Hervé is gonna probably knock out 200 or more, and other people will. So my distance will be compared to theirs for the ultra sign up results. But whatever, it's not that. Luckily for me, it's good and bad. I have so many races on my ultra signups results, close to 250. So any one race will not have much of an effect, like 1/10%, which is good if I don't do well, like at the USATF compared to Zach Bitter. It's bad in that when I win a race and I get 100%, my score will change 1/10%. Whereas if I only had 2 or 3 races, your score will live or die on what you do because there's so few of them to be averaged out.
Yeah, like your your ranking is 81.3% and your age ranking is 84.5. So yeah, when you throw in scores, it doesn't affect as much because, like you said, they've got how many results here? You've got 273 races on your thing, so quite a few. Yeah. Anyways, but
so well, what I started to say, I lost my train of thought, so I'll finish that off real quick. Is that if I'm in a race, like if he allows my hunter to go into the 100-mile race results, it does give me an unfair advantage. It sounds like with the weather, because I get to run in weather that's nice and cool, perfect, no rain, and then if they either get hot temperatures or get rain in the actual regular start time of the 100, then that gives me an unfair advantage. But again, I don't think it's going to be an issue. I don't think I'm going to be competitive with the times that will be there. And we don't know because Lewis is one of the race directors who doesn't post the entrance list, which, it's a bummer because I have no idea who's going to be I have an idea because I have some friends who have told me, but other than that, I don't know who's going to show up. But anyway, so we'll take it wherever happens.
Well, I come from playing sports since I was a small kid. And so for me, and we've talked about this a while back on one of our, I can't remember what they call it. I was going to look up. Actually, I know I can find the list. You know what their timing system's called? Genho's timing system.
Yeah, negative split timing.
Problem is you type that in, and there's of course a couple companies that have that name, but they actually. I'm trying to find it. I can never. It's like, anyways. What I was going to say though is, I think I wish we've talked about this before. Race directors. I mean, not that it's ever going to happen. It'd be nice if they came up with some set rules on these races. Especially now they become more popular. And one of them is definitely the whole. Letting people run races at the same time. And for myself, I definitely feel that, only people in the race for competitive reasons, at least getting prizes, should be that you all start at the same time, because weather conditions and things like that change so much. It makes it difficult. I mean, I know like across the years they used to, and I think they still do, where, they used to lump all the 24-hour results. Well, from day to day, as you well know, because we've been there, the weather can be completely different on every other day. And so it's it's a screwy kind of thing. But I look at it in terms of being a competitor, that it's definitely not fair to let one guy run one time and then you run another time because conditions changing. I mean, I know like when I was at, cross the years one year and did the 48, it was great knowing what the numbers were ahead of time. And so I was able to go last and run, 1 mile further than the person and get third place result. And so it's definitely, and it kind of messes up the competition part of the event, but it is what it is. That's just the way it is. But I just wish.
Yeah, I agree completely. So for example, if and that's just completely ridiculous, but if I actually had the best 100-mile time at Born to Run, I would not at all feel right about taking. Well, if they had a first, and they do, they have first place prize for each of their events. I wouldn't feel right about taking the prize. I would think the person who's in the regular start would get that, but I would still like to have my time thrown in with everybody. And that was a problem that happened with this other race that it was a 48-hour race, and I started a day early because I had an event I had to go to, and otherwise I would have done the 3-day race, but did the 2 days, started a day early. And the race director had said, well, you can't podium, I'll put your race results in with the other results, but you can't get a podium prize. I'm like, that's cool. I'm okay with that. Well, ends up, I did the race, and then the next day, the regular 48-hour people started, and I had 8 miles more than the next person. And so definitely no reason for me to get the first place prize. That should have gone to the person who took first in that race. But unfortunately, there were 42 people in that race, and I have my race listed with an asterisk at the very bottom. And the problem I have with that is an asterisk makes, there's a question, asterisk, what's that mean? Like when in baseball, if someone has an asterisk, it's like, well, were they on steroids when they, got the most home runs, or, and so it looks like there's something untoward had happened there. And so I'm really kind of bummed out.
Yeah.
More of the asterisk maybe than not getting the first place on the results.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think really people look at it like that. But what I was going to say is, I wish, not that it ever going to happen, but that there were kind of rules and regulations on instances like that, but also on the whole. In fact, I saw an article the other day on letting people drop down into other races, and now race directors are kind of figuring out, oh yeah, let's just not do that. And I really wish there was just kind of a blanket, like, you sign up for the 24-hour race, you're in the 24-hour race. You sign up for the 100, you're in the 100. Things go wrong, you get a DNF. Or you get, like me, I did a 72-hour race one time and went 20 miles and went home. Or a 6-day race where I went 60 miles and went home. And it's just, we kind of have this culture today. I mean, everybody's like, oh, a bunch of 2 old guys bitching about the youth, but this participation trophy, no failure kind of stuff. And it's like, hey, you know what? You sign up for, like, you go to like perfect example, like the US track and field. It's definitely, you're going to get
my attitude on that is I will call it a DNF. If I signed up for a race, like the race that you co-directed, the Celtic 24-hour, I signed up for the 24-hour, and it was just having some really bad physical issues. And Adam allowed me to drop into the 50-mile race results, which was fine. I got a 50-mile time rather than taking 50 miles in the 24, which worked for me. So I'll take it. But in my mind, it's still it was a DNF in my mind, because I signed up for 24 with the hope of doing 100 miles. But I've had races where, like 2 of them that were 100-mile races, and didn't make cutoffs, and ended up, they dropped me into the 100K category and gave me a buckle. It's like, all right, I'm not going to throw the buckle away. I'll take it. I'll keep it. But again, in my mind, both those races, it's like, that was kind of like a mulligan, And especially if someone does a drop down, the one thing that definitely has to be upheld, and that is that person is not allowed to take a win in that event. If someone's running 100K and someone's running 100 mile and they're going out way too hard and they get dropped in the 100K, suddenly they're the winner. It's like, no, that's not right, because that 100K person wasn't competing against them. They may have completely changed their strategy. So I feel pretty strong about that. I did a race in October in Texas, the Cactus Rose 150, and the race director told us going into it, said, look guys, you signed up for a 150-mile race, and it's a 25-mile loop, pretty gnarly loop. And he said, if you get through 4 or 5 loops, I'm sorry, but you're DNF. We're not going to give you the option of a 100-mile drop down. And you know what? I'm glad he did that, because I got through 100 miles. I got through 75 miles, 3 loops, and that took me 24 hours, and I was really beat up and was thinking, all right, man, I know I can go at least one more loop. But if that option would have been available, I probably would have exercised that and taken the 100-mile and called it a day. But I'd spent the money. I was there. I had to pay for a flight, and it's like, I'm not about to walk away with a DNF if I can help it. So that actually did keep me in the race and pushing through. And sure enough, I got the 150. It was a 58-hour cutoff. It took me 57 and some change. So I barely made the cutoff. But hey, I got my 150-mile buckle, got my second place finish. I'll take it.
Yeah. Well, what I was going to say though is just, it'd be nice if there was some kind of like a fixed time federation or something. Not, like we need more rules, but just because like at least like a Jackpot, the thing is there, if you're in the USTF race, you're only going to get 3 things. You're going to get a DNS, did not start, did not finish or finishing time, because there is no other event but that race, which is another thing I much prefer. I like races where you go and there's only one event. I much prefer that. Well, that's one of the reasons why I like the LA Marathon. You're at Dodger Stadium, you're standing around. Of course, they do have some kind of dopey relay, but basically, when you're at Dodger Stadium, you look around to your left, to your right, and you realize, hey, we're all going 26 miles. We're all in this together. Where you run a lot of races, there's nothing more disheartening than you're in a race, and then at mile 12, 3/4 of the field goes off to the right, and now you got to run a marathon, and you're all by yourself, and it's just depressing.
Yeah, that's Surf City.
Yeah,
I love the race, but so the marathoners start in hour and a half later, the half marathoners start, but you end up to where the fast ones are eventually, up there with you. And so you're still lots and lots of people. And then you're like a half mile from the finish for the half marathon. And we take a turn on the bike path, and suddenly it's a ghost town. There's like nobody but the marathoners out there. And then we've got that lonely trek to the end of the bike path, turn around, come back, and then eventually jump back on the course with half mile to go, and now we're back in with the half marathoners. Now it's a crowd of people again, but that's tough when you make that split. The San Diego Rock and Roll, same thing. There's a point where there's that split, and in Long Beach Marathon, same way, I believe. And
Long Beach
half
too,
marathoners, are moving, and you're taking this little turn, and suddenly you're going from 20 people around you to now there's just 2.
And when you're in the back end, it's even worse, because you have at least a crowd of people, because a lot of people, the slower people, are doing the half marathon. So when you're in the back, like that 5-6 hour range, man, it becomes a ghost town. In fact, it was really funny. My oldest son just popped in the room. In fact, all 3 of my sons now have their second COVID shot, Pfizer shots. So our entire house has the vaccine. But what was interesting was when Christopher was 16 as a junior in high school, he decided he wanted to run a marathon. And I should have had him run LA, but for some reason I put him in Surf City. And he was in great shape. He was a 17-minute 5K. He was training where he could probably run close to 3 hours, but the day before the race, he said, "Can I just finish the race?" And I was like, "Of course." And so he just kind of cruised, and he ended up running 3:16 for his first marathon. Well, what sucked about doing Surf City was it has the half marathoners start an hour after Chris did. So Chris is out there running with the lead group. I got this great picture at mile 16 where he's this young kid. And he's running with like all these guys in their little Iron Man outfits. I mean, you look at the picture, and these are hard men, serious guys running 7-minute pace, 3:15 marathons. And so anyways, Christopher had to do all that crazy out and back, get to the finish line. Well, the problem is when he was finishing his last mile, he now had to run through the half marathoners. So he's running a 3:16 marathon. They're running a 2:16 marathon. So he's running 7-minute miles. They're running 10-minute miles. And so he had to pass through hundreds of people the last mile or two, which was just super frustrating for him. But then what really sucked is when he's coming across the line, instead of being like, Christian Anderson, Bakersfield, California, 3:16, 16 years old, it was da 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 da, because 2:16 half is when most people are finishing. So he didn't even get like he placed really high, won his age group, but he just kind of crossed the line with a couple hundred other people. So it's kind of really disappointing. Whereas if he'd run LA, he would have been in the top 500 at LA, and he would have been out there running through the neighborhoods of Los Angeles. And everybody like, wow, look at that young kid running. Wow. It would have been such a much more monumental thing. I mean, I don't know, in the end, he cared for it. So like I was saying, at Jackpot Friday, it's basically do or die. Of course, the 48-72 start then. But then, like I said, the other days you have all the other races. And I get why you have all the other races. It helps with, getting your cost up. But I really wish it was kind of like, hey, you sign up for the 100-miler. If you don't finish 100-miler, you just get a DNF. You don't get the 50-mile finish. And I mean, and we've both been benefited of dropping down in races. I've done it. You've had people do it. And I understand, you just don't want to have you want to get credit for doing that event, and it's almost kind of like, wish maybe instead of putting DNF in the 100-mile, they just put, mile 75 where you quit, what I mean?
That's what they do at Barkley. Don't they get credit for every loop that, I mean, they get a finish for either they do one loop. I think it still shows up on their results, not as a DNF, but they did one loop or they did two loops or they did the fun run. I think, is that correct?
Well, I know that 3 laps is the fun run. I don't know exactly
I
if
remember
there's
seeing
any.
someone's results from Barkley and it showed 20-mile finish. So I'm thinking that he gives, people credit for
Well, I don't
each
know
loop that they
whether
do. Yeah, of course.
I don't know. I don't know if there's actually an official website with the results. The way that race is, you can pull up on negative splits running. They already have all the entrants listed on there. In fact, I can send it to you later.
Okay,
For all the
cool.
races, they already have it on
So,
there.
so how many are entered into the 100-mile?
Well, the problem is it's not numbered, but there's a lot of people in the 4 day. There's like two
I
pages
think
of
I
four
think I
day.
heard there was like 40 or so in the 4 day. That's the biggest field since I've been doing it. Um, but the 100-mile itself, is that about the same number or even more?
12, 13, 14. I'm just kind of trying to do a quick thing here
Sure, there's a quick math there.
because
Yeah.
they don't have the number. There's 40. There's probably about 50 or 60 in it.
Okay, so that's a pretty good number. Yeah.
I can go down on the 100-mile. I'm looking through here. There's really nobody's name. Nate Moore. I noticed. I know him.
Who?
Wait a minute. No, I don't know. He's too young. There's a Nathan Moore up here in the Central Valley who puts on
Okay.
races, but this Nate Moore is 20 years old, and that's not the Nate I know. Claudia's going to be there doing the 100. There's really no. I just looked through here, and there's nobody I've ever heard of in the 100, except for Claudia.
It's interesting because I heard we had a Zoom a required race
Yeah.
review, and Lewis, the race director, was saying that coming out, we're going to see Camille out there, and I'm thinking Camille would not do that 100-mile race there. That would just for an elite athlete, a sponsored athlete. It's just too risky for her because she can't benefit anything from it. It's not a fast race, but I think she's probably doing one of the smaller kind of fun run, little 10-miler or maybe 30-miler or something, just to be out there and have the experience. So, do you see her name on the list there?
She was up in the desert recently training. She lives in Colorado, and she's been training in the desert lately. Yeah, she's in the 30-mile.
Okay, I figured as much. She's out there just to have some fun, which makes sense. It would be really silly for her to pick that as one of her 100-milers when, as an elite athlete, they have to be very careful on, well, as you know, they can't. I'm the Chrysler, I'm the workhorse. So I can go out there and just pound out a 100-miler and another one and another one. It's like I'm not elite. I don't need 6 months to recover and then go, put up a world record time. But a guy like Zach Bitter, I'd be surprised if he did more than 200 or 300s in the year, just because at the level that he's at. He's trained specifically for a race, and then that's it for him for another 3, 4, 5, 6 months.
Yeah, Camille's in there, but yeah. So, like I said, in the 100, there may be some fast guys in there. I don't mean when I say nobody I notice. It's just I know a lot of Southern California names and the usual suspects, and there's just not anybody. And so, like in the 4 day, Anders Dahl is a name I have always hear. Do you know Anders? Seems like I know that name for some reason. 50-year-old.
What's the name?
Anyway, Anders Dahl, DHL.
No.
Well, Bill Dickey's going to be out there. I talked to Bill. He'll be out there.
Okay.
And then
Hervé, I know Hervé's going to be out there. He'll do pretty well there, I think.
What's his last name?
Hervé Leconte. So it's Herve and then Laconte.
Yeah, he's listed there. And then not a lot. I do know this gal, Lee Scarber. We used to coach her. She lives in that area. She'll be running it. She's a 36-year-old. And yeah, not really. I don't see too many other people I know there.
That
So
that is an interesting race. So the first year I did it, I didn't do it. The first year they held it, I think, was 2010, and I did it the second year, 2011. So good race, had a good experience. I think that year I did it. I think I did it in maybe 22. I think I have his third place overall. But anyway, someone interviewed me for a podcast about that race afterwards, and asked me, "Yeah, what you think of the race?" And yeah, it's a good race. Enjoyed it. They have a really kind of a hippie vibe there, like Woodstock, kind of in the ultra running world, because it's associated with the Born to Run book.
yeah,
And so they've got that vibe, which is really cool. I love the energy. I don't participate just because, I'm an old fuddy-duddy, old guy, but it's not my scene. But nonetheless, it's a lot of fun. So she said, "Was there anything you didn't like about the race?" And I said, "Well, all right. The only thing I really didn't like is that I'm kind of the term is buckle whore, but I like getting a buckle when I run a 100-mile race. And there was no buckle. And I said, which I was a little surprised about, because the race director, he's up there wearing his Western States buckle. So obviously he likes buckles. He's wearing one. And I just feel like we should get a buckle when we do a 100-mile race. So the next year I did the race, and Lewis came up to me, "Ed, look at this." "Oh, awesome." He said, "You know why we're doing that?" I said, "I'd forgotten." He says, "Because of you and your big mouth." So I was like, "Well, good. Glad that you're doing that." So, and then he also has a 200-mile buckle for those in the 4-day. He had said something a couple of years ago about maybe even making a 300-mile buckle to be incentive for someone to knock out 300 miles, which on paper for a 4-day, that sounds very easy, 75 miles a day. But
yeah,
again, what looks easy on paper, and then, this is a trail race, actually. It's not like the typical fixed time events are typically purposefully on an easy, pancake flat or fairly flat, smooth surface, easy course. And this one, it's a challenging, race with ups and downs. And so to get 300 miles there, best I could do there is 270.
yeah.
So, I haven't done it, but maybe, who knows, maybe someone will hit it. But so that's a memory I have. But another fond memory I have of the course, and it was that first year I did it, out running with a group of runners, and it's on a cattle ranch, and we're coming around on most of it's on fire road or dirt roads. Anyway, coming around, and we can see vultures way up ahead of us. Don't think anything about it. And as we get closer and closer, we see they're landing on something actually on the course, and we get right up to it, and it is a dead cow on the course. But not just a dead cow, it was a heifer that died while giving birth, and there's a baby calf halfway out of her, and the vultures are there pecking away at the eyes. And I mean, it's one of those memories that just burned into your skull, you'll never forget. And so I did Louis Escobar has a podcast called the Road Dog Podcast, and he interviewed me a couple weeks ago, and I brought that up to him, and he said, "Ed, you know how many people actually asked if I purposely put that cow on the course just to, give us some variety and mix it up?" He's like, "People actually seriously thought we took this dead cow with the baby cow coming out of its backside and drug it onto the course."
Yeah.
But didn't you tell me something about a race that you did where there was a dead cow on the course, cross country?
Yeah, I started running cross country my junior year here in Bakersfield, California, and we are now known for having McFarland up the road. Won 9 state titles, Disney movie with Kevin Costner as the coach and all that. Well, before McFarland, we had the great team around here. In fact, it's funny, a red school also was Arvin. It's a largely Hispanic school back then. And so I was running against them, and they were kind of the McFarland of the day. And we ran a dual meet at their school, and I had been winning a lot of races that year. And when we, actually, that was my junior year. So I just was new. Well, we were running through all these, orchards and stuff that's around there. And then at about mile 2, there was a dead cow on the road, on the middle of the trail, just smelly and bloated, just really gross. And I just kept running. But later on, I heard that they actually did drag that cow out onto the course just to mess with us gringos. Of course, this was 1980. So, but what was funny is like the McFarland guys are like the nicest kids in the world. But those Arvin kids back then, they were some hardcore guys. They were sharp elbows, and they were definitely, you didn't mess with them. I mean, when you're out there running, you knew you were out there running. They were some tough guys. So, but I just remember, here you are, it's like 95-degree hot weather out in the farmland, and you come around a corner and there's just this carcass on the course. And like I said, years later. So what happened was my senior year, I got really fast and was winning lots of races and was doing really well. And what happens in California is you have like your league meets, and then you move up and you have your area meets. And in those area meets, Valley and state, it's cross country is all about team score. And so I had a terrible team. So when I moved up to the area meet, I was by myself because my team didn't qualify. And there's very few individuals, like 4 teams will move up, but only one individual from maybe the top 5, 6 kids will move up. So it was really funny. We were at the big area meet, and Arvin was up for a team title, but I could help them because I could displace other runners in the race. And so I was like an honorary Arvin guy. They come up to me like, hey, we need you today because the better you do, the better we do. So get up there and hang with us. And so I ran for Highland. We were green and blue. And of course they were red, the Arvin Bears. And it was just kind of funny that it was like, hey, so that's kind of what's fun with cross country is one time you're fierce competitors, and then next time you may be relying on each other and to help one another. And I just remember that was one of my favorite moments. But definitely, I had another incident happen to me, Ed, going against North High. At the time, I was undefeated. I'd won 5 or 6 races, and they had a kid there at North High who was really good runner. And it was a fair fight to begin with. And so we would preview the courses, and our courses are usually these super boring, run around the school a couple times, run in the school a few times, finish on the track. So we went and previewed the course, and then here me and Todd Schrock were battling back and forth for the win. We get to like about a half mile, 3/4 a mile to go, where we're going to turn in and go to the track to finish. Well, we go around the corner, the gate's locked. Without even pausing a second, Todd just immediately climbs over the gate and keeps on going. I stopped for a second because I'm like, I'm in a race. The gate's locked. And of course, Todd later on admitted that they knew the gate had been locked too. Because like I said, when he didn't even break stride. He basically just he was a criminal and he knew that gate was going to be locked. Like he just ran, grabbed it, and it was, a 6-foot tall fence. Back then I could climb over. Now there's no way in the world I'd climb over. And they ended up losing by a few seconds, but just fun times from 40 years ago. But yeah, that's kind of interesting. Now, the course out there, I remember when they first did Born to Run, they were talking about how you could run it barefoot. Can you run it barefoot, or is it pretty rocky and difficult?
I wouldn't think it would. There's a lot of rock. It's a dirt road with a lot of, wouldn't say gravel, but yeah, a lot of rocks. But you know what? Those barefoot guys, they run to everything. But what is going to be there is a lot of people with Luna sandals because Ted McDonald, Barefoot Ted, is a founder of Luna Sandals. He's a good friend of Lewis's, and he actually, through the pandemic, it was only pretty much him and his wife and one other person were making sandals. All their staff, they quarantined. So, but he's bringing out a whole bunch of sandals to deliver to people.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
And so I know a lot of people will run the course in the Luna sandals.
Yeah, and that's a big difference, the Luna sandals versus pure barefoot running. You very rarely see anyone really barefoot running, though I do remember when that whole book came out, I'd be in marathons and you'd see guys barefoot or in those monkey shoes, whatever they were called, the Vibrams, and you look at them.
Yeah.
You look at them to start going.
5 fingers. Remember those? Yeah.
But you look at them and go, you're a 30, 40-year-old American. You've been wearing shoes your whole life. All of a sudden, you think you're going to be able to cover 26 miles basically barefoot. And then it would always be interesting. You'd catch those guys at like mile 20 in absolute agony, pain, feet bleeding, just a mess, because you'd be like, dude, you're not, you didn't grow up not running around barefoot.
I'm as far away from a barefoot runner as you could get. The two shoes that I wear of Ultras, both of them have the biggest stack they make. Their trail shoe that I run is Olympus, a 32 millimeter stack. And I'm not a guy who knows much about shoe stats, but I know these because I run in them. You can ask me about their other shoes, I couldn't tell you anything about them. And the Paradigm also has a 32 millimeter stack. So, but I tell you, I've seen people run barefoot, and to me, it seems to like some people it's the trend to jump on the bandwagon of that. And a few years ago, that seemed to be a big trend. But there is that one guy that we ran with. He was at Desert Solstice, and he also was at 6 Days of the Dome.
Oh yeah.
He was actually cooking the food, but he did come out. That kid can book. He did like 130 or 40 miles barefoot the whole way. I mean, I was super impressed with him, and he has such a smooth stride. So that I would call that's a true barefoot runner. But there's too many the people who call themselves barefoot runners, and it's not my place to judge, but it is funny that as the race proceeds, suddenly they're wearing shoes. It's like, whoa, where'd those come from? Oh yeah, I decided to put my shoes on now.
Yeah, well, and Andrew, we were there at the Dome, and he's done like 135 miles barefoot. But you also got to realize he has like perfect form, and he's also like 5'7" and weighs 110 pounds.
Right.
I mean, he's a little tiny. I mean, he's perfect. I mean, he's built like a Kenyan, and so that's why he could get away with it. Of course, you probably put a pair of shoes on him, and he might actually be giving Zach a run for his money, because he's definitely a phenomenal athlete. In fact, it shows here he did 144 at Desert Solstice in 2018. But I don't know if I think his 135 was when he actually did when he did barefoot.
Didn't he? He said, I think that's the world record for a barefoot 24-hour, I believe.
Yeah, but the record I think is, like I said, is like 138. Yeah, he's a phenomenal runner. It's interesting. Like, I think those Vibrant shoe people got sued because of their false marketing and stuff. There's like a big, huge class action lawsuit on those guys.
Well,
because
I had experience with those Vibrant 5 fingers. So I just started running and had done just a couple marathons. And a friend of mine, she said, Ed, you got to try these. They're so amazing. They're so cool. It's like, no, I'm okay. I like my shoes. Oh, Ed, man, you got to try these. They're really, really cool. So finally, I put them on. It's like, it actually is kind of cool. You can kind of feel the surface you're running on. Well, they do say, so I'm a little surprised that they were getting sued, because they have a disclaimer when you buy their shoes that, hey, you need to work up to this. You're running now without any cushion on your feet. Your body's not used to it. Well, I just ignored that and went out, pounded out some miles because, hey, it felt so good. And of course, I do 99% of my running on pavement and concrete to begin with. And I ended up getting a tibia stress fracture and I can't blame it on their shoes. It's from my stupidity or ignorance from.
Oh, so you put them on. That's how you ended up in that boot, huh?
Yep, that's how I ended up in the boot.
I never have heard that story before.
Yep, that's it. It was that darn Vibram 5 fingers that put me in the boot.
Yeah, well, I just Googled, and it says Vibram USA, the company that makes 5 finger running shoes, has agreed to settle a lawsuit alleged the company made false and unsubstantiated claims about the health benefits of its glove-like footwear. According to court filings, put the rest and avoid additional Libra. So they're denying wrongdoing. But anyways, a lady sued them, saying it deceived customers by advertising footwear could reduce foot injuries, strengthen foot muscles without basing these assertions on any scientific method. The gist of her claim is that Vibram illegally obtained an economic windfall from her because it was only by making false health claims that Vibram induced customers to buy five fingers, and to pay more for them than they would have otherwise. So yeah, they ended up dropping $4 million and paying off.
That's two shoe companies that I ran for that got sued. So the Vibram story, I ended up with the TV stress fracture, ended up going in the boot, and I did actually do, I think, probably 8 or 10 marathons in the boot, including LA Marathon and Boston. I've been to Boston one time, and the whole, I was in the boot, walked the whole thing. Well, so I get this boot, and the physician's assistant says, you should buy a pair of Skechers Shape Ups because they have a really thick rocker bottom that's similar to the boot, so you're not going to be uneven. And they didn't know that I was, going to be doing marathons in the boot. They just said, just to, go around, be more comfortable with that. So I'd qualified for Boston, and I already paid for my entry, and actually had signed up for the Boston Big Sur. And so I decided, you know what, and I had done LA Marathon in March. Boston is the third Monday in April. Supposed to be the third Monday in April. It was supposed to be this last Monday, but of course, COVID pushed it off to Columbus Day. But anyway, so I show up, and I didn't have those Skechers. So I go to the expo, and sure enough, Skechers has a booth, and they're selling their Shape Ups because they don't have a running shoe. It's like, why would they show up at the Boston Marathon Expo? But anyway, nonetheless, I bought a pair of shoes. So I ended up doing the Boston Marathon with the rocker bottom walking boot and the rocker bottom Skechers Shape Ups. Well, Skechers ended up getting a huge multi-million-dollar lawsuit because they were making false claims about their Shape Ups, that you wear the Shape Ups, you're going to lose weight, and all kinds of other things. So they actually were involved in a lawsuit. Well, wore their Shape Ups, and that got me through, some events, and that was great. And then I went to do the San Francisco Marathon that July, and I just gotten out of the boot, and there at the expo was Skechers with their brand new running shoe, which was a super heavy clunker of a shoe. It's called the SRR, but it was super thick. And I said, I ran in these Shape Ups, or walked in, and they did okay for me. I think I'll buy a pair of these. And so I got those, started doing marathons in them. And that time I was working on breaking the world record for both marathons. March, I'm at the LA Marathon Expo.
You're breaking up.
And there's
we lost you, Ed.
There with the booth, and they're based out of LA. Pair of Skechers, the ones that I bought at the out, note on the bottom. And I was wearing them, and I went to their booth, and I said, yeah, these are great shoes. I've done a whole bunch of marathons in them. And I showed him, I lifted up and showed him the bottom. He's like, I can't believe you're running marathons in those. I got to show this to our VP of marketing. So took a picture, sent it to them. Ends up, they became my sponsor because they were so impressed that I was doing all these races. They ended up paying for my first Badwater. They paid for all my expenses, gave me 2 vehicles with wraparound graphics. I mean, I showed up to Badwater like I was some rock star.
Yeah.
They really took good care of me. And they also sent a professional photographer there. And what I understand is that was in July because of the photos that they
you're breaking up.
took. They went to the big Neb and showed him pictures and said, hey, this guy has done 135 marathons in our shoes. And Neb was blown away because he's a
Unfortunately, Ed, we're breaking up a lot. Ed. So anyways, we are breaking up.
professional marathoner, and on their part, he got picked up by Skechers and ended up, doing some really amazing things. Won Boston Marathon in 2013 or 2014, excuse me, after the bombing in Skechers, and went to the Olympics. And so anyway, that's my story of the two shoe companies that I ran in their shoes, and they both were sued making false claims.
Well, that's not good news. Yeah. So yeah, Vibram ended up $4 million. They had to give out like $100 per pair reward type of thing. But yeah, I just remember those things, and glad that they kind of went away. We've often had this discussion about the Born to Run, and you were breaking up some. So where are you in the Malibu area?
I just went through or passed near Ojai. Oh, this is La Conchita. Is that where they had that big mudslide that one year that took out all those houses and killed all kinds of people? Was that La Conchita? Is that the place? You know what I'm talking about?
I remember slides, but we have them quite often. I don't remember where that area. Yeah, if you're up there in Ohio, oh yeah, because we're gonna lose you then, because you were breaking up a little bit on that when you were talking about the Skechers. It was coming in and out, but that's all good. Probably need to let you go because, like I said, you are heading into the hills, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
so
I still am hugging the coastline, but I'm looking to my left. There's the ocean. To my right, yeah, there are some pretty steep hills, and I will shortly be taking a turn heading inland. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I figured. So probably let you go because like I said, you were kind of breaking up. But we got the gist that the shoes you were using, they had the rocker thing, and then Skechers. I was trying to remember. In fact, Yolanda was using Skechers for quite some time too.
Yeah.
So it was kind of nice that they were providing her footwear. And definitely, like, kind of wrap this up. Kind of, we're talking about anybody got ideas to help Ed finance his 60s, and when he turns 60, definitely send them our way. We're hoping to maybe do more of these video podcasts, Zoom things. We've looked into the Clubhouse thing, but I think the problem with Clubhouse is, one, you're not supposed to really be recording, and two, it is just an audio thing, which is mainly what this is, but it is kind of nice to have the video aspect to it. So hopefully, I don't think you're going to have any cell phone at the race. Maybe you at least check in with us and see if you do. But
I've never used my cell phone there, but I think there's like one spot up on the hill that if you're just within a short distance, you can get 2 bars or something. So yeah, no, I'll be completely silent during the race.
Because I remember my buddy Randall Gannon from Bakersfield, who you've done a Celtic with, he went there and did the 4-day a year or two ago and got his first 100. And I remember him posting a video or a photo. Okay, if you climb up to this little hill and you stand on your left foot and put your phone in the air, you can get some cell phone service. So it is pretty, people don't realize, but just outside of Santa Barbara, it's some pretty wild remote times. In fact, the Santa Barbara 100 was out there, and that thing was a viciously difficult course. And then you did the Santa Barbara 100, right?
I did that race. Yeah, that was, it was interesting. It was, the memory I have from it, and this is, your brain latches on to certain things. The one memory I have is coming into an aid station, like at 60, 70 miles. And they had us do a weigh-in the night before, and I had jeans on, and I don't know, it definitely was not my correct weight. So then I come through the aid station, and it's a mandatory weigh-in, and I weigh in, and the aid station captain, and I don't know who it was. I mean, hopefully I'm not going to offend somebody by saying this, but some people get that God complex. They get a little bit of authority, and they. So I weighed in, and he didn't like what he saw, and he said, "Oh, you gotta stay here, and until you get your weight. I don't know, add weight or I don't know what it was." And it's like, and at that time, I hadn't done as many hundreds as I've done, but I'd done 30 or 40. It's like, look, do I look like I'm, my health is compromised? I'm fine. I don't feel bad. I'm going to keep going. And he was like almost physically ready to restrain me. And I said, look, I'm going. If you want to tell the race director and he wants to DQ me, I'll deal with that at the finish line. But no, I am not going to sit here and wait until a scale gives some arbitrary number that you decide now I'm healthy to go. So I remember having that conversation. And that's probably my biggest memory from the Santa Barbara 100.
Well, it was a funky race with a lot of kind of stuff like that, and the trails were pretty miserable and all that. But what's interesting, I just did a video podcast about that very same thing about dehydration and hypernatremia, where you're drinking too much. And the problem is getting waterlogged is far more dangerous than the dehydration thing. And it was just kind of silly how they used to weigh you. And I used to always look at them going, okay, so on Friday afternoon, you're going to weigh me in this room. And then you're going to weigh me at mile 25 up on top of some mountain, and then mile 50 at the bottom of a canyon. And there's 4 different scales in 4 different areas, altitude, everything. I go, how can it possibly be accurate? Plus I got packs on, da, 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 da. I go, it's just silly. And thankfully they quit doing that at most races. And then like the few races they do it at now, what they do is they more do it as a systems check. And they go, yeah, like, so when you get up there and you're lying to us or you're coherent, like if you're lying to us, we know you're okay. Because, or if you're arguing with us, we know you're okay. But if they're like, hey, Ed, hey, Jester, how you doing? What? Then we know, okay, let's go sit you down. But like where you're having that complete lawyer argument with the guy, they realize like, yeah, you're perfectly fine. Because what happens is they would force you to drink, and that's how you die. When you get dehydrated, you get dehydrated and lose 3 or 4% of your body weight, and you're okay. They can give you it looks dramatic when you collapse from dehydration, but people don't die from dehydration. Big city marathons, they die from getting waterlogged because we're just a big battery. And when you mess up those ions, the heart stops pumping. And then when it stops, people don't know what to do. What they need to do is give you this super saturated seawater, basically, to get you back. But they usually don't have that on hand. They have an IV. So they give you a regular IV. If you've got waterlogged, it won't, that's how people die. In fact, marathons now, instead of having aid every mile, have it every couple miles, because they've realized they were killing people. And my first couple marathons when I ran, I always had stomach issues. And it was because, like me and you both train, we don't drink. But back in the day, they'd be like, drink before the race, drink during the race. And I get that sloshy, terrible stomach at mile 20 or something with diarrhea, and that was because I was getting waterlogged. So I'm so glad. I remember talking to some old timer friends of mine who did ultras back in the day. You know what they used to do? The guys who knew they were losing weight, they would, before they get to an aid station, they would pick up rocks.
I know, because my buddy did it. I don't want to say his name, but he was doing the Grand Slam, and he was at Leadville, and they come into a weigh station, and they said, you are like right on the edge. Next station, they're gonna make you sit down for an hour. So he put rocks in his pocket, and he made it through. And his wife, when she found out, was about to skin him alive. But hey, he did what he had to do.
Well, I had the same story with my friends from Bakersfield, and that's how they got around it. But then the thing about it is, you got to realize, like, if you have the mental capacity to realize you need to do something so you can keep going by putting rocks in your pocket, you're obviously okay. Because the people aren't okay, they can't even think for themselves. Yeah. So like I said, if you're cheating or lying, we know you're okay.
There are 2 things that I think should have been reexamined. One was the whole weigh-in thing, because that just to me was ridiculous. There are other markers that are more important than a weight. And so even Badwater does a weigh-in, but it's more kind of a, what would you call it? It's kind of the traditional weigh-in, because and then from that point on, it's just your weight. They mark it on your inside of your bib. So if you have a scale out there, you can check and see if you need to. I don't take a scale with me. It's not an issue that I ever have had to worry about. But they don't make it. They don't do anything with it. And so the races that I'm aware of are pretty much all eliminated this whole making decisions based on weight. But there's a second thing that the races need to do, and that is they really need to examine their early cutoff times in 100-mile races. Because it's just, I had an experience at San Diego 100 where I was coming through, and it was, and you might know the names of the aid stations, I don't know, but it was mile 50, I think it was, and that was the first cutoff time was the 44-mile aid station. Then
I know.
And then each one after that. So I was fine to the 44, had plenty of time, got to the 50 and came to it okay, but I knew I wasn't gonna have a spectacular finish time, and I was out there having fun. So there were some friends of mine that I hadn't seen yet, and wanted to make sure that they were and come in with people, and I would announce their bib number as we would come in because they needed to track that, announce the name to the time you could pick up a pacer. Anyway, so it was fun. I was having a good time doing that. And then my two friends I was waiting for, they never came in because there was someone, a volunteer, who was out there with them, and they were following the volunteer. The volunteer said, "Yeah, here, I know the way," and took them off the course, and they didn't get back on in time. Anyway, so I'm through with the last group that make it. I'd already checked in, so it wasn't a problem for me. And so I'm trying to help them get to the next cutoff, and it's like herding cats. I mean, they're just not going fast enough. And I'm saying, guys, we got to pick up this pace. You're not going to make the next cutoff. And I think we only needed to do like a 16-minute pace, but saying only, we were climbing and they had gone through over 50 miles. So we're getting closer to that checkpoint. And I think it was Chipping Few said, "Ed, you need to just go ahead. You can't be helping us. None of us are going to make it. You can just go." And I felt terrible. It's like, you know what? You're right. So I broke from the group, went ahead, and ran into the aid station. At that point, it was 56 miles maybe. And the aid station captain like, "Oh, you're a minute too late."
Yeah.
Like,
I know.
Well, wait a minute. Do you see I'm running? Do I can, in 5 minutes, I'll catch up to the last person you let go through it. I'll pass them up. Nope, sorry. And what I should have done is what I did at the Santa Barbara 100, because at the time, Scotty Mills was the race director, and I wasn't worried. Scotty Mills would have not had a problem with it. Well, what I should have done is said, "You know what, I'm going, sorry. Tell Scotty, if Scotty wants to DQ me, okay, he's the race director, but I'm moving on." But instead, I was being Mr. Nice Jester, and it's like, well, all right, then I guess I missed the cutoff. And that is a regret that I have, because I didn't finish that race, and I certainly could have. Because even if you're trying to break down the numbers, and you saw this at Western States, when I did Western States, people were saying, "Oh, Ed's really close to their cutoff times," and you knew, well, Ed's going to be just fine. But it's sometimes you're having a bad stretch, and then suddenly you get that second win and you take off. I know there was when Jamil Curry was doing Hard Rock one year, he came into the aid station at like mile 28, and he was sick. Stomach was just total upside down. He took a 4-hour nap and then got up, got back on the course, and just started blasting through, and ended up passing up the vast majority of people who had gone ahead of him. But go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, because we might be losing you. Well, and the whole reason I got into fixed loop racing is because of Trail 100s. And the problem with these races, like you have the weigh-ins, is the problem with San Diego, Angel's Crest, and many races is like San Diego had a 32-hour cutoff, which is like 19-minute pace. But you had to be at mile 50 in under 17 pace. And you had to be at mile 75 in like under 18 pace. And then you could just die the rest of the way in. And so one of the last trail hundreds I ever did was San Diego. I made mile 44 by like 10 minutes because it was like 1640 pace. And it's a pretty hard course. Dragged some kid in there, and then he didn't continue. I made it to mile 50 where my friend Allison was there with like 5 minutes to spare. Me and her just flew through the next part of the course. There was no moon, cold. We get to mile 72, 75 aid station. I dropped Allison, started running 11, 12-minute miles, ran into the aid station, and I missed the cutoff by 5 minutes. But you had to be at mile 75 at like 1730 pace, where the whole race was 19s. So I had like 10 hours to go the next 25 miles. But they set up the cutoffs. They aren't even with the race. So like if it's a 33-hour race, a 36-hour race, you have to do 20-minute miles the whole way. And I get it because people run, blow up, and then they, make the cutoffs. But when you try, and what happens though is if you want to add more inclusive, more hiker type guys like me doing these races, I could finish San Diego 100 in under 32. I could probably finish Angel's Crest. Angel's Crest was another notorious race where you had to be at mile 40 in some ridiculous time, like 16-minute pace. So you had to sprint. And then the granddaddy of ridiculous is Leadville. Leadville, you've got to be sub 24 pace for like the first 40 miles. And then you can cut off. But I mean, part of it is, yeah, you don't want to have the volunteers out there forever. But also part of it is you make the cutoffs tight in the beginning. That way you don't have as many finishers. It just is a good way to eliminate. And so I often tell people when you're doing trail hundreds, if you're not a fast marathon runner, it's very, very difficult. So San Diego 100, what ended up happening is we ended up timing out at mile 75. Brian Hinon was the aid station captain, which was kind of cool. He used to win all these hundreds back in the day. So it's kind of cool to have him time me out. But then we had to sit there forever. It took us hours to get back to the finish line. Of course, when I saw Scotty there at the finish, he came out and gave me a big hug and said, "Hey, I know if we let you go, you would easily finish." He goes, "You probably would have caught a lot of these people." I go, "Yeah." I probably would have finished in 30 hours. And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, I appreciate, just going by the rules." And I was like, well, I kind of look at it as like, I knew what the cutoff was to begin with. And, that was my race. But since that race, I've never tried to do another trail 100 because of the cutoffs. It's just,
I need to give kudos to Scotty because I got cut off at the 50 mile, and I like to be at the race finish and cheer people in. And I didn't want to because, well, I was envious. These people were all finishing the race, and I should have been able to finish it. I went ahead and got a ride to the finish, and it was actually, in a way, it was kind of cool because I got to see the first runners come in. But Scotty saw me at the finish, and I was like, "Dad, what are you doing here?" And I told him the story and said, I was trying to help some people, and they wouldn't let me go. And he said, "Ed, well, what they say, no good deed goes unpunished."
true.
But he said, "Ed, I'm giving you a free entry for next year." He said, "But don't do that again."
Yeah.
I was like, okay. And I've gone back and ran it a couple of times and didn't do that again. So I didn't have that situation. So, kudos to Scotty for he didn't have to do that, but he felt bad that, he knew I could have likely finished it. And so it's like, "Dad, here's a free entry for next year."
Yeah.
So that was
he's a great
cool
race director. And like I said, a lot of times the race directors, they know us and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, give him a hall pass and let him continue on." But, sometimes they're busy, swamped, can't get a hold of. Like I used to do a lot of Kara Henderson races, and she would tell the aid station people, like, "Yeah, whenever Andy rolls in, just let Andy continue on, because even if he's way out there in the middle of nowhere by himself, he'll get back to the finish line. We're not worried about him collapsing on the side of the trail, and he'll also just wrangle in all the guys who die along the way." And I did that a lot of her 50 milers, where I ended up kind of being this unofficial sweeper. Like, "Okay, I'm the caboose. You need to stay in front of me, or you're getting out of the race." And so
I got in trouble doing that. The year I did the 41, the only DNF I had was Kodiak 100, and I did a stupid thing. My wife told me not to do it, but who listens to their wife? I was trying to save a buck everywhere I could. So I asked the race directors, I said, "Hey, will you give me free entry if I'm the sweeper?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure, of course." And so the problem with being the sweeper is you have to stay behind the last person until you bring them to the next aid station. There's a reason why someone's the last person in the race. They're not having a good race. And that was perfectly fine. The first few aid stations would bring, and more often than not, person was in such bad shape. I try and convince them, stay in the race. You can still do this. Nah, I'm done when I get to the aid station. So then get in, move up pretty quick, get to the next aid station, or heading to the next aid station, run into somebody again that's having trouble, help them out. Well, I was coming up to the 100K mark, and there were some people out there that were struggling, and kind of, stay behind, trying to help them come on up. And sure enough, got there, and we missed the cutoff. And I should have played the sweep card. I should have said, "Hey, I'm the sweep, so I'm going to move on." But I felt really bad because of all the times, the two people that I found on the course, they wanted to continue. All the other people were like, "No, I'm done. I get the station. I'm dropping." These two people wanted to continue, and I just didn't have the heart to say, "Hey guys, sorry, I know you want to go on, but I get a special privilege. I'm moving on. Sorry." Just didn't have the heart. So that was my DNF. That year I would have had 42 instead of the 41. But go Go ahead.
I was going to say, Ed, I'm surprised we still kept together. But anyways, I was going to say, you were talking about after you get your 200, you're going to change things. And one of the things you got to change is just making those kind of assumptions. You are the sweeper. And like when I sweep races, I'm like, look, I always tell the aid station people, like, I'm the sweeper. I'm going to keep on going. Obviously the race director made me it and just keep going. And like, you just have to like tell those people, like, too bad, I'm, like when you catch them, you have to tell them, oh, hey, I'm the sweeper. I'm taking you to the next aid station. But then you didn't, we're going to keep on going, and you can't. Yeah. But you just got to kind of, get a little, a little more assertive, Ed. I think you earn your stripes when you get to 200 finishes.
Yeah, exactly.
We lost you.
Can you still hear me, or did you lose me?
Let's just end it here. What do you got to say, Ed?
Okay. Well, I was going to say that I think they should do on the cutoffs, they should have a hard and a soft cutoff. A soft cutoff would be the ones that they typically have, and then an hour later have an absolute hard cutoff. And I think that would solve a lot of those problems we talked about. Anyway, that's it for me.
Yeah. Well, no, but Ed, the problem is a lot of people would take advantage of it. I mean, like someone like myself or you, we know our abilities and we know what we can do, but there's a lot of people that way overestimate, and then you're just going to send people out and then they're going to have problems. And so it's just, you can have a rule, but there's always going to be a few people that screw with it. So hard cutoffs are perfectly fine. I just would like them to be a little more saner. And I sometimes write race directors and go, you do know you want us here at this time, but the overall pace is this. And I've had race directors change them because I've written them. So, that's kind of, make it a hard cutoff. I'm perfectly fine with the hard cutoffs, but make them a little more, friendlier, make them fair.
Another possibility is the race director giving the race, the aid station captain, the discretion to make decisions that they should be making.
True. That's true too, Ed. We've lost you completely. That's also true. But then the problem is then you're going to have the poor aid station captain having to make hard calls and getting people upset and ruffled feathers. So that's about it. So I'm going to let Ed go here because we have definitely lost him. He is now heading into the mountains for the Born race. Oh, we lost you, Ed.
If someone out of shape medically, they need a play and they're doing well, they should let them go on.
Yeah, Ed, we lost you. We're going to end it here.
All right. Well, I'll check it.